Hey, moms.
Hey, daughter.
Sabrina's going to share a quote.
A memory without an emotional charge is called wisdom.
A memory without an emotional charge is called wisdom. That is a quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza. Welcome to The Juggle is Real,
A mom and daughter show
parenting and mental health.
for moms and teens.
So it's been a few weeks. We transitioned. Oh, this is what we're talking about today, transitioning into the new year. So we don't typically wear sparkly outfits. It is New Year's Eve here, but we are recording, and we wanted to talk about transitions today. And, the plan was that we were going to record a few weeks ago when we had talked about our next episode was going to be about the both and concept. And then Sabrina and I had an experience where I'll say I needed to lose its emotional charge to bring the wisdom to it. And I think that today I felt really strongly about doing this today because I didn't want to bring into this next year with a sense of holding on to something. So, Sabrina,
Yeah.
do you remember when Miss Christiana and I started the podcast, what it was called?
The Dream Board Social Club.
Dream Board Social Club Podcast. So, for those that are new to the show, Miss Christiana is a really good friend, and she's the mom of Sabrina's really good friend. That was the partner in crime. I like to say the partner in sneakiness that was a important piece into why we started the show. Really holding us accountable to really processing through these emotions so they start to lose a charge and then they bring the wisdom to it, right? But when we don't, here's what happens. So that podcast, the Dream Board Social Club podcast, we started that 2018 because at a certain point, Miss Christiana and I realized that we were living a really good life, like nothing to complain about, amazing partners, amazing children, great career, beautiful home, a really good community. Everything is so beautiful. And there is this level of what happens when you get older where you live on autopilot. Okay. And do you know what that means?
Like, just going through it. Like, yeah.
Going through the motions,
Mhm.
right? And I'm going to try to speak to transitions in a way that's hopefully going to be helpful and in a way that's going to be like systematic. So it's easy to follow. And again, so this is a parenting and mental health show, right? And so why we have these shows is yes, we want to bring teaching points, but we also want to bring teaching points of experiences that we are juggling in the present moment, because it's in the present moment that that's how we get to stop this habitual way of living. That's autopilot. And so a few episodes ago, I shared most of our thoughts are repetitive thoughts, right? They're on repeat. And by the time you're in your 30s, you are living literally on autopilot. I mean, you're just living habitual. And so your body basically becomes your mind, and it's controlling the way that you're thinking, it's controlling the way that you're feeling, it's controlling the way that you're acting. And all of that creates just a way of being and your personality, right? And your personality, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, is your personal reality. And so I'll say a few weeks ago when Sabrina and I were going to record something that was piggied off of the prior episode, which was something heavier we were moving through with the recent death of your father's dad, my father-in-law, and also the holidays is also a remembrance and a time of remembering my own brother who passed away December of 2022 unexpected, right? And here's what I'm going to say. There is a lot of that I don't have the wisdom yet to share about Papa with you right now, other than because it's so acute, right? I
Mhm.
don't have the wisdom because I don't have the wisdom in trying to articulate that. But what I want to do is just share with you about Uncle Randy, just in how I'm going to let it flow. Okay. But the importance of transitions is to be with what feels sticky, what feels like a burden. So we can really come into 2025 to really just create more of what life is meant to bring us, right? More joy, more love, more opportunities, right? But to be able to do that in a way that is intentional takes intentionality, right? So really sitting again with these heavier emotions. Now I know I'm not really making sense, but here's what I wanted to say. So when we were going to do the episode a few weeks ago, and we were intentionally going to take 2 weeks off before we moved into the new year, but here we are obviously doing it before the new year started. What happened, Sabrina?
We had I mean, I forgot how it started.
Well, I'll just own up to it, okay? I had a temper tantrum. I had an adult temper tantrum. And we were recording last week, intentionally wanting to talk about Uncle Randy
Mhm.
and about Papa. And can you just share the story?
We were recording, and then just wasn't working out. And then we both got frustrated, and then you kind of took it out on me a little bit.
I projected onto you,
Yeah,
but what was I projecting on?
that I didn't do enough around the house, or, like, I wasn't doing my responsibility.
All right. This is like an example of the both and I don't want to use you right now. I want to use a good example, and maybe because this isn't about you, you can see it. So Sabrina's brother's home, right? And he's been living his first year away in college, and he chose a really tough path. He's doing the academy, the military academy at Virginia Tech. And so it's very, very structured. It's very, very rigorous. And he has a lot on his plate at college that when he comes home, I almost want him to be like feel like more relaxed. He's so happy to be home. So there's that level of I'm so happy he's home. And when I see him like sit around watching all the movies, leaving dishes in the sink, socks on there's a level of like, what? Like that. And then I think, gosh, here's what goes on. Like through my mind is like, okay, don't like Tanya, it's okay. But he's so happy to be home. Just let him have his freedom because he doesn't have the freedom there, right? But I'm feeling a little bit of what?
Um, like, you're not parenting, maybe? Or that, like, I don't know.
Resentment, maybe, a little frustration. I got more to clean. Is he really not gonna clean up for himself? Does mommy have to do all that kind of thing? And then that obviously builds to like other things. So Christmas break, okay, I know that you work hard and soccer's done, but then one of the things that was bothering me, and I'll just speak to it, okay, because what are some of your responsibilities at home?
Walk the dog, feed them, give him his medicine, do the dishes.
And why don't you rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10, how well you do it?
The dishes I do almost every day. I'm like
Okay,
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. And then how well, can you rate yourself on how often I don't have to remind you?
Not for the dishwasher. Or, like, maybe over break, but, like, in the mornings, I don't.
So
Like, for
it's
school.
okay. So it's building up during break, and
Yeah.
it's, I'm already. So you can just see. I'm obviously probably projecting because I'm seeing this. Okay, and then about your dog.
No, I'm really bad with that.
You're really bad about that. Okay, I'm just
I'm
gonna
I don't
what,
he's so much work. He's such a bad walker.
what, but what are you doing alternatively? What are you doing?
Being on my phone, laying in bed.
Be your phone laying about. Okay, so okay, I get it, and then I also don't get it. There's this both and like I get it
Mhm.
and I don't get it, but let's just have these conversations because it's like we can have all the fun. And how much more fun would you have if you did your responsibilities and mom wasn't like hovering over you, like feeling resentment or bitterness? Because what did I say to you in one of the episodes? What do I fear?
That I'm gonna take the credit. Is
Well,
that
well, okay, yeah, I did. So I projected it on that, right? So that's something separate. I feel raising entitled children,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so when I had my little temper tantrum last week, it was about me realizing that with you doing this, I think it's always a reflection of my parenting. So there is my own humanness that thinks like I'm doing bad parenting if Sabrina has to be, how many times do I have to say this? Like, I don't want to scale to yelling or tone or something. And Sabrina, I promise you, I do not think I'm like the best mom at all. I think that I'm trying to be conscious and try, right?
Mhm.
And pass on the wisdom in a sense that I really want to own up for my own. And I don't want to just own up like, oh, I'm human. Like, I'm not perfect. That's not what I want to say. I really want to own up that I'm trying when we have these conversations. How can we widen the perspective to a way where it starts to lose emotional charge? And it probably won't be in the moment, right? Okay. And this is the thing. I can have like this here and kind of have a structure, but what feels really good to you right now, and here's how I feel like this is just where it needs to go with this episode, is I was like shut down, right? So when I had
Mhm.
my temper tantrum, like I literally did, I was just like, I'm done. Maybe we don't do the show. You know what I mean? And so we cut off
Mhm.
the show because I did say to you, look, I said, our energies together, this is going to be reflected. The energy of us together trying to record when we were not in harmony and coherence will be felt by whoever's listening, right? Because unless we're really good actors, but our hearts weren't in there, right?
Mhm.
And you could feel that. And yeah, when you're saying I was projecting, I'm sure I was because I was emotionally charged. And so that was like a Sunday. That was last Sunday. And what happens is it continues, right? And so my thinking continues. And that thinking creates a chemistry in my body, right? And so I'm just thinking over and over. So now my body's just remembering it. And I thought about it. And I ended up saying to dad, just you guys go out that night because we wanted to do something special for Christmas. You did not need to be in my energy. I'll just say, I didn't really want to share it. I was in the bagel theory. Okay. This is what I want to share right now. When we are trying to survive, I'm just trying to survive. Like my body's recognizing that I feel threat. I feel threat in like me parenting. I feel threat in a relationship. I feel threat in trying to deliver good teachings and experiences of what we're juggling. Everything was just like survival. I was feeling like I was running from a tiger. And that's just, again, noticing my nervous system's way. But here's why this is so important when I talk about transitioning in anything, right? You can't just all of a sudden go from us to like all of a sudden, here we are again, right? We're just going to record and we've just processed in polybagel theory, and there's like a hierarchy. So we know again we have it's shutdown mode. I said I don't feel safe, right?
Mhm.
But to be able to feel like we can start to talk again, or we can start to feel normal again in the relationship and start to feel a sense of inspiration. This is the same thing for how you felt about your driver's license, okay? How you can feel that is that there needs to be some kind of mobilizing energy to go back into feeling inspired, to go feel back into feeling safe enough to like having these conversations. Safe in a way for me feels authentic, feels heart opening. Okay. That feels safe.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're having conversations, but conversations that still feel like just tight. They don't feel good. And so, do you know what you did that night
I texted
that
you.
mobilized it? Yeah.
Mhm.
So she sent me a text that night and said, "Hey, mama, how are you?" Okay. And that mobilized a little bit of just energy to come back into wanting to connect again. Like, and I
Mhm.
know that feels so esoteric in a sense, or it's too, you said this last time, it's too big of a concept.
Mhm.
But everything I say over and over in working with our emotion is the same thing. We have to feel a sense of grounding, a sense of safety to want to connect again, right? Because we can't go from not feeling safe to feeling like, hey, we're having a mother daughter show. We're so cool, and like in the background, I'm thinking, is she entitled? Does she deserve her phone that she got? And all that creates a thinking that starts to be habitual. And it goes on repeat over and over. And then it'll build again to our next interaction, our next interaction. Unless we really learn how, how to have these talks, right? So that was a little bit of mobilizing energy. And then the next day, what did you do?
I wrote you a
She
letter.
wrote me a letter and I said, "Look," I said, "why don't you just talk to me about it?" And she's just like, this is one of the things that in episode 2 we talked about learning
We
how
communicate.
we communicate. And you know that from anger and your anger too, but then the way that you get through things is that you have to talk through it. And me, I have to release this stuff. So with breath work and just being, and I just journaled like crazy just about what I was feeling, really giving acknowledgement. And again, it doesn't always happen in the moment because it depends how big the emotion was. That emotion was really big for me,
Mhm.
you know? And so once you have that little bit of mobilizing energy, that's when you can start to learn to like reframe things again. And that's what I wanted to say. Like when my brother passed in 2022, he lived in Michigan. He wasn't married. He was a few years older than me. And my kids were like his, like he devoted like every holiday. And so that loss, it means that there's no words that will give reverence to like what that felt like in my body. So for all of us to know there are things that how I learned to speak to it so that I can grieve him in a way where I can do this both and where I can grieve him, be with him, and still be in what life wants to offer, right? And that is how to come in and bring more joy, bring more opportunities so we can create more experiences that we get to like just be in the wisdom of, right? But again, it's really just learning your unique way of doing that. I write Uncle Randy. You know what I mean? There's not a day that goes by because I have intentionally consciously done things daily where I'm thinking about it, where it's passwords for everything. Like he's my password for everything in one sort or another. So I'm constantly thinking of it so that, yes, I grieve and it hurts. And I go through a lot of the like, why did he suffer? Why did it have to happen? But over time, because I haven't ignored it, it's lost its charge that it moves through a different level of being able to relate to it. So it becomes like a new relationship that I have with him. And it's deepened my way of how I think about unseen energies. Like even though his physical presence is gone, his light, because our minds are so strong. I mean, I see his face, right? You see
Mhm.
Papa's face, you see Uncle Randy's face. Our minds are so strong. And there's a way of like our elevated emotions in our relations with him, that we get to still move through life in the present moment consciously now that feels like we're still with them.
Mhm.
Okay. And this doesn't even give it the weight of what I want to talk to you about the both band. Here's what I wanted to say. We're going to do a part two on this. We know that because of how we are built with our nervous system, that our minds, our human minds, are always going to be built on things that happened from the past. That's why it's super important, right? That we live in the present. Be intentional about how to become, this is the world of mindfulness, to be present with what is going through us emotionally, right? And how is that connected to our thinking? And what is it that we truly get to feel and want to feel to be able to start not living in that habitual ways that feel more negative, remember, causes more suffering, right? Because if I didn't do this episode today,
Mhm.
Sabrina, I would have held on into 2025 until like a few hours from now, feeling like it didn't feel complete. This is the idea of when we say trauma, and trauma can feel like a traumatic word, but trauma can be, yes, really big trauma, but it can be these little micro traumas of having these arguments. And that when they don't feel complete to us, they stay stored in our body. And that's how our mind takes over our body. All right. See, just talking through this, the emotions of like last week, they've lost its charge that they really truly get to become wisdom, right?
Mhm.
In a sense that you know now that what you did, like I'm so grateful that you wrote that you sent that text to me because there was a spark of that light that I needed. It
Mhm.
just illuminated more of what I want a relationship to be and why we started this show to hold us accountable. All right. So that's how I wanted to end was happy new year to you. And I think you're absolutely beautiful. Can you share something about how here's what I want to say. I want to apologize for projecting, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know. Um, I just care about our relationship a lot, so that's why I sent you that text because it didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right. Right. And that's a huge acknowledgement of, remember, I keep saying to you, just noticing what you're noticing. And when you notice that you don't feel right, and then act on that, right? Because if we don't ignore it, then you're just going to remember that. Actually, the last thing that I wanted to do, Sabrina, let's end with this a funny twist to this or that conscious choice. Okay. Well, maybe it's not so funny. I'll ask you this. Okay.
Okay.
So regret the past or embrace the lessons.
Embrace the lesson.
react to triggers, or respond with awareness.
Do I have to say what I do or what I would like to do?
Oh, I love it that you just shared that. Yeah. Okay.
So
Good.
I react to trigger.
You just said I projected. Okay. Hold on to guilt or practice self compassion.
I hold on to guilt.
Okay.
I don't want to, but I do.
I'm the Cancer sun, so that's why we're here. So it took a week to be able to do this. Carry emotional baggage or travel light into the new year.
Um,
I was like, if this was a trick, it's a trick question here. I'm getting
um, I probably am carrying emotional, but I would like to empty, like, be light.
be like, okay. You know what's funny is that this or that is something that I asked my friend ChatGPT, but this has become a acknowledgement because now you're going to remember this. Okay, last one. Repeat old patterns or create new ones.
I repeat my own.
Not anymore, right?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. So two things I want to circle back to. A memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. And so that memory of last week of me all crazy, mama temper tantrum, that already has lessened its charge and it feels different already in my body. It really does. Okay. So I really wanted to share that. And circling back to the Dream Board Social Club podcast that we started in 2018. So that is something for the next few episodes we are going to share on and just getting really intentional about what we want to bring in 2025 because every successful person you study, they start with a vision. So that is something that we are going to bring into. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is that I want to give more credence and more time into transitioning with speaking about Papa and Uncle Randy. And that is something that we will do at some point that's going to feel into the present moment that feels super powerful and just super intentional.
Mhm.
All right. So happy New Year, everybody. Love you.
Okay.